Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the movie Get Out. But first, let's have our podcast members introduce themselves. My name is Peyton Hines. I am a junior psychology major, criminology minor from New York.
My name is Nyla Lee. I'm a junior journalism major, psychology minor from Brooklyn, New York. My name is Cyan Fleming, psychology major, legal communications minor from New York.
Hello, my name is Mark Anthony Beckles, and I am a junior psychology major from Trinidad and Tobago.
Now that all the podcast members introduced themselves, we're going to kick it off with Cyan talking about the editing and the script of the movie.
I focused on the script and the editing of the movie. So the first thing that I noticed, I'm going to focus on mainly the script first for right now. So one thing I noticed was that in the very beginning, it opened up with, a black guy in a suburban neighborhood. And, black people are inherently suspicious, I feel like. We just, especially when we're in a suburban area, we know that we're the minority in the space. We are very, watching over our shoulder, and we're very, oh, let me make sure I get here and just get out type of thing. And in the beginning, you see this white car just following him and then turn around and then, come back, and he's like, not today, not me, no. And you just see, he just gets, taken, and then that's just the intro to the movie. And I really thought it was a very, interesting beginning, because it was building up to what we see later in the movie. So later we start getting introduced to Chris and his girlfriend Rose, and from the very beginning, even the very beginning where the guy, which we find out later is Andre, walking in the neighborhood, even from the very beginning there is this race play, there's this play on race, there's constant play on race. Chris is asking Rose, do they know that I'm black? And she's like, no, you're the first black guy that I've dated, but they don't need to know that you're black, kind of thing. And it's just the constant stereotypical comments that white people tend to make when they're trying to relate to black people on what they consider to be a deeper quote unquote deeper level. So stuff oh, he would have voted for Obama, and stuff like that. And you just see throughout the movie how his friend is Chris's friend is just suspicious from jump, and is you shouldn't go over there and all of that. And Chris, is naturally in a relationship, so he goes anyway. And I just feel there's this constant play on race, even when they get in the car accident and Chris, they hit the deer. Chris goes to see the deer, and the way that they zoomed in on their face, which was more an editing thing, but the way that they would zoom in on the face, and between him and the deer, it's you could tell that there was some sort of connection, or some sort of sympathy for the deer, type of thing. And yeah, seeing the cop immediately ask for Chris's license, even though he wasn't even remotely close to driving, was a red flag. But it's Rose seems this type of person who's very, the type of person to stand up for her partner, and she does not take any type of microaggression or racism towards Chris throughout the movie up until the very end. I thought a lot of the editing was very interesting given the script, because the script and the editing worked very well together, in my opinion. Just when Chris finally meets the family, and you can tell that he's anxious, he's knocking on the wood, and they zoom in on his knuckles hitting on the table, and they zoom in on the mom's teacup, which seems, like the spoon and like the glass, like it seems irrelevant in the beginning, but as the plot starts to thicken, we see why these things were so like emphasized in the beginning and like zoomed in, like, and we know that they're important or emphasized because they are zoomed in. It's like from the very beginning of Chris meeting the family, the father is immediately making microaggressions towards him, and the mom is kind of like, oh, relax, and like Rose just seems so upset and disgruntled about the fact that the dad is making such, what she would consider to be like ridiculously like ridiculous and blatantly microaggressive towards Chris. But it's like he's the only one that, although he's, he has the facade of like the nice parent, he's the only one that's blatant about the fact that he is not okay with Chris's presence. I feel like the rest of them, excluding the brother and the father are like the only two that are more blatant in their disdain of sorts for the fact that he is there. Rose and the mother are less obvious about it. Rose is like has the best mask on out of all of them. I think that the individual characters and their words kind of set the scene. Like they really start to lay the groundwork for what's to come later down the line. It's like an assurance, like Rose is constantly reassuring Chris, like, oh, my family is not racist, and da 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 da. And then they get to the house, and it's like the complete opposite, because Chris keeps seeing, these black people in the house, but they are not acting as what we would consider to be, black people and typical behavior of us. Like, not to sound stereotypical, but like when black people see other black people in a room, it's a certain type of energy and comfort that we feel, and Chris never has that feeling of comfort. And I feel like the editing in the movie is really what allows us to see that they are not quote unquote typical black people that, that would be so like excited to see another person of color in the room with them. Towards the end, I felt like the way that they kind of play on the damsel in distress type of thing when Rose is bleeding out was kind of like that switch. Like it just shows that like nothing about it was genuine. Like she goes from, oh my God, like Chris, it's me, I love you, and then once he starts choking her, which was another thing in itself, like the fact that he chose to choke her out when he had a gun right there and he could have just easily finished the job right then and there, showed like the hurt and the anger that was behind him. And once she heard the cop cars, she starts smiling. It's like that instant switch that like, I got you, until she finds out that it's his friend. And I just felt like seeing how they drive off and like she's on the side of the road bleeding out. She kind of dies alone on the side of the road, just like Chris's mother did, which I felt like was a full circle moment for the movie.
Thank you, Cyan, for that wonderful commentary on the script and editing of the movie. Now we have Nyla, who is going to tell us about the psychological impact of the film and the costumes that were worn throughout the film.
The psychological impact of Get Out relies mostly on playing with the idea of unconscious memory and dissociation. When we first see our main character, Chris, fall into his hypnotic trance induced by hypnotherapist Missy Armitage, he is asked to dive deep into memories of his childhood. He thinks that this will help him quit smoking. However, Missy's goal is to make him detach himself from reality or dissociate. By detaching her victims from their own reality, she is able to cause them to lose control and awareness over their own thoughts, actions, and memories. The movie refers to this phenomenon as the sunken place. In terms of the psychological impact that the film bears on its audience, it has opened a conversation surrounding the Black identity. Pulling from themes reminiscent of those present in Uncle Tom's Cabin, Get Out seems to serve as a metaphor for assimilation. The idea of making blackness digestible in order to fit into white spaces was elevated in the film, and that they shifted black consciousnesses to a white one while maintaining the black people's bodies to mirror the Uncle Tom character. This film also demonstrates the lack of regard for humanity that black people are treated with, as we are desired for traits such as our bodies, but our minds and ideas are seen as undesirable. This also alludes to the imposter syndrome that many young black people identify with. Aside from the obvious aging of characters such as Andre, played by Lakeith Stanfield, who was seen in casual attire prior to his kidnapping, and house slave-esque attire after, we see many subtle nods to the plot and the costumes of the characters throughout the film. Nadine Hayters, costume designer of the film, has pointed out that the characters of Georgina and Walter, the house staff who turned out to be Rose's grandparents, were supposed to look as though they were dressed up like dolls. From Georgina's nightgowns to the old sneakers that Walter wears, the characters were supposed to look out of place in their costumes, as their bodies were not their own. Missy and Dean's costumes are also interesting to me. Their outfits are very reminiscent of the cool white liberal attire that one would see on the kinds of people that these characters portrayed. Their attire was very laid back, juxtaposing their uncomfortable and awkward demeanor around Chris. Missy in particular donned a necklace reminiscent of indigenous culture, alluding to the character's tendency toward theft and appropriation.
Thank you, Nyla, for your commentary on the psychological impact and the costumes in the film. Next, Peyton is going to be discussing the camera work and the setting of Get Out. The camera work in Get Out speaks for itself. The director, Jordan Peele, sure knows how to work the camera. What I noticed, and I'm sure many people may have noticed it too, was how the main character, Chris, always seems to be looking the audience directly in their eyes. Even from the promotions of the film, the posters stress the meaning of looking into Chris' eyes. In most posters of the movie, you could see Chris with the widened, tear-stained eyes. It adds a very tense aroma to the situation and makes the audience feel as if they could feel exactly what the character is feeling in that moment. Another thing worth mentioning is the ending scene, where the camera shows Chris' face in the end after he gets revenge for all the wrongdoing that Rose family did to a lot of black people. The camera is used to show the relief in Chris' eyes when Rod shows up in the police car. However, the same can't be said for Rose. When the camera looked back on her, her face looked saddened or even disappointed because she felt like it was going to be a white person stepping out of that police car, but she was disappointed to see that it was Chris' best friend's Rod who actually stepped out the police car. She was, if I could say myself, I think she was very surprised that Chris' best friend found him after she thought nobody would ever find anybody who came up there ever. Moving on to the setting of the movie. The setting of the movie mainly takes place in a community that looks like it's in the middle of nowhere. There is not a lot of people in this area besides the people that already live in the community. It is said that people that travel to this community never return, especially the black males or females that are brought there. Most of the movie takes place in Rose family's house, which is known as the sunken place. The house is a white house with 2 columns on the side, which kind of makes it look like a plantation house, or it could even be compared to the White House, where both forms of houses failed the black community, where the White House nowadays put out legislation or lack of legislation to help the black community, and plantations are where slavery happened, which everybody knows was very bad for the black community and what started this cycle of hatred to the black community. A part of the house that is significant is the living room. The living room is where Rose's mother will perform the hypnosis on any black person that they captured. She would do the hypnosis by using her spoon around the edge of a teacup, and that will make the person that she's using it on become hypnotized. After the person is hypnotized, they will then be brought to the surgical room, which is another important part of the setting. The surgical room is where Rose's father will perform the brain removing surgery from the old white person to the younger, more effective black person. So he will take the brain of the white person, usually most times, 9 times out of 10, it's an older person. With this, they will put the older white person's brain into a black person's body, which will basically be the black person's body walking around, but it's not a black person's brain. It's not that person's brain. The brain inside will be the white person's brain, and the person will behave like the white person because the brain is the mind of the body. So whatever the brain tells the body to do, the brain will do it. So that's why that person will no longer be mentally black. They will be mentally white. Overall, I think that the setting and camera plays a huge role into how people got the message of the film and the impact they received from it. This film was one of the centuries. It was a very legendary film, and people talked about this film for years to come afterwards. Thank you, Peyton, for your commentary on the setting and camera work in the film. Next, Mark Anthony is going to be telling us about the music and casting choice in Get Out.
The cast consists of a diverse selection of talented actors and actresses. Peele did a great job of selecting each for their specific role. Hollywood sensations like Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, and Lakeith Stanfield alone will catch the eye of any bypasser on a poster for this film. Other star names within the film are Bradley Whitford, Catherine Keener, and Caleb Landry Jones. Peele even casted his longtime film partner Keegan-Michael Key, whom he hosts their TV show Key and Peele with. The music choices within the film definitely add character and background to the already charismatic scenes. Ironically enough, some of the soundtrack selections provide somewhat of a humor effect towards the audience, almost as if the very lyrics of the song were specifically targeted towards what was taking place or what was about to take place in the movie. This is something that not much OST composers can easily do and must be appreciated. For instance, the song Redbone by Childish Gambino appears in the movie's very beginning. With the lyrics "Stay woke" being dramatically repeated, one must only wonder if he was trying to warn the protagonist from the very start. Other songs in the film include Run Rabbit Run by Flanagan and Allen, and the classic I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes also makes an appearance within the film.
Thank you, Mark Anthony, for your commentary, and thank you to all our listeners at home for taking the time out of your day to listen to our podcast about Get Out. We hope our commentary encouraged you to go watch this wonderful film yourself, and we hope you could join us for our next podcast. Once again, thank you and have a great night.